Alright, hello to anyone who is watching this. I haven't posted on this channel for like 5 months, but I was looking back at my fan fiction for episode 9 that I made at the end of last year, and I really want one day, my dream, if anyone asks me what my dream is, I'd say for my episode 9 fan fiction to get somewhere big one day, for fandom to recognize it, or maybe have it animated one day or something, but I was just looking back at it, and I don't want to give up on that dream. So I thought I'd post some content on the channel, and maybe that will help get things going. And I thought a good way to start on the channel would be a controversial tier list I can make is ranking or putting on a tier list all of the movies for Star Wars. I've been a big Star Wars fan all my life. I'm not like a new Star Wars fan or anything, so although I do think a lot of my opinions on this tier list will be controversial, I'll probably, if you guys comment, I'm sure I'll hear it in the comments, a lot of disagreement, but maybe some agreement, because I will try to give reasoning for each placement that I have. So yeah, let's just get started ranking 1 through 9 with Rogue One and Solo as well. So I have S, obviously the best, and all the way to D tier. I would say I grew up with the prequels. I do like, how the newer movies are better visually, just from technology advancements. That's obviously just naturally a plus. That I think it just unfortunately downgrades the originals just because they didn't have the technology back then. But let's just start with episode 1, The Phantom Menace, right here, and we're gonna put that actually in D tier because it's a prequels. We grew up on that, but the first 9/10 of the 90% of the movie, man, it's difficult to watch that and be entertained, in my opinion. It's a lot of political stuff. Everyone knows the Phantom Menace for the last battle, which is Darth Maul versus Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon. And I really like what Dave Filoni said about that duel, which I think a lot of people don't realize. It's Duel of the Fates because depending on who wins that battle, Darth Maul versus the two Jedi, the fate of Anakin Skywalker, who's the child at the time, is determined by who wins the battle. So that's why it's a Duel of the Fates. And I thought Dave Filoni explained that very well. But yeah, the first 90% of this movie, man, it's really slow. I really can't place it very high. I'm sorry. And I know some people's favorite movie is The Phantom Menace. But yeah, that's where I have to place that one. Now, episode 2. I have episode 2 in B tier. I think episode 2 might be, well, the sequels are the most controversial, but episode 2, I think a lot of people will have that high or low, but I have it in the middle. Obviously, like I said, I love the prequels. I grew up with the prequels, but I think there's a lot of memes and some interesting choices George Lucas made. But overall, I mean, you can't deny it has some crazy action sequences. I mean, the Battle of Geonosis is pretty crazy. The Dooku fight at the end, and I like how, the good guys don't really win. Dooku actually wins that battle, and I like movies that, if I, watching this in the theaters, if I was watching this in the theaters way back then, I think it would have been a really cool ending to see that, the Jedi didn't win. So I have that in B tier. Overall, it's decent. Now, I think the best Star Wars movie, hands down, is Revenge of the Sith. Man, this movie is basically like my childhood for Star Wars. I mean, we, as kids, acted out the duels. Everything was around this movie. It's just such a good movie. It's another movie where it doesn't end so happy like a lot of movies these days. And I think obviously the battle on Mustafar. I mean, there's so many battles in this movie and action. This is the most action-packed movie, I'd say. Um, I think that a lot of people give Hayden Christensen hate, but you know, people say that he played Anakin perfectly because the way he talks and carries himself is supposed to be, kind of monotone, and he's like conflicted. I just heard a really good reasoning for why people think he played Anakin really well, and I do agree with that. He's struggling with his emotions, and I think he portrays that very well. And George Lucas, the creator, obviously thought that as well. But yeah, there's so many good things about Revenge of the Sith. And actually, a fun fact I heard is that, I believe this is correct, the first scene in the 70s, when George Lucas was thinking about writing Star Wars, apparently the first scene he ever thought of was actually the Battle on Mustafar, which he wouldn't actually write that for 6 movies, but that's apparently the first scene that he thought of for Star Wars, and it's very clever of him to start the New Hope, jumping right into the action. It's very unique. A lot of people would start series setting up all the characters and doing all that, but he actually saved that for, over 20 years to do that in the prequels. It's just very interesting. So yeah, I have that as S tier. Actually, we're going to go right to Solo, which I think I have to put that in C, just because there's nothing really special about this movie. It has some cool, nods of how Han Solo, his character is created and his relationship with Chewbacca and the Empire, but there's nothing too crazy about this movie. Obviously, I love the dialogue at the end with Maul. That's so good. And they got Ray Park to actually be the actor for that. And that Sam Witwer for the voice acting. It was just great. It was great seeing him again. He looks so good in this movie. It's just a hologram, wasn't in there for much, but that was my highlight for this movie. So I just have that in C tier because there really wasn't too much besides that. Now, Rogue One, I think I have a pretty unique opinion on this one. I have Rogue One as A tier. This is one of the best Star Wars movies, in my opinion. I really think, again, the fact that it's like basically a war movie. It shows sacrifice, and I think it's just awesome how it ends where all the characters you learned about in this movie that you came to love just die, but they all they sacrifice themselves for the greater cause, and it shows the Death Star plans, how that came about, going right into Episode 4, and obviously the Darth Vader scene was great, and I just really like this movie a lot. Now we got Episode 4. Now, I think people who grew up with the original trilogy would probably put this like an S. People who grew up with the sequels probably put this in D because it's just like an old movie. There's not action. I think this movie is purely based on nostalgic, based on how high you rate it, because this was originally made, or obviously it was made a long time ago, and the technology wasn't up there, although for the time this was very good apparently, and I have to put it in C tier just because the movie itself just doesn't entertain me too much, but I get people who grew up on the original trilogy, could have this higher. I completely understand that. So Episode 5, which is, I'd say, the majority of the fandom's favorite movie, I have that in A tier. Obviously, I'll spoil it for where I put 6, but I think this is the best original trilogy movie. The whole Yoda stuff is just so good. Yoda's theme, and it's such a good put together movie. I mean, it is really good. So I think I'm going to put that in A tier. But again, I know most people have this in S tier. Now, episode 6, yeah, I have this one in B tier, and this one's very interesting for me because episode 6, gosh, I strongly dislike the first half of this movie. The first half of this movie I'd put in D. The second half of this movie, you know, with the throne room scene and, you know, Luke and Vader scenes, I mean, that's you know, up here. But I think it averages out to B. It's, yeah, I just really don't like the first half at all, like at all. But then it gets good at the end. I mean, it's really good. All right, so now the sequels, which is the most controversial 3 movies of the Star Wars universe because, well, I think everyone knows how they're completely split, especially the last couple. But, you know, The Force Awakens, a lot of people had problems that it was like A New Hope. I don't have an issue with that. I thought it could set up for a lot of good stuff, and it was a good introduction back into Star Wars after the break, after the prequels. And I thought it set up characters really good. It is like, who knows what's going to happen in the 8 and 9, the last 2 movies. I thought this actually was a very good movie. Yeah, I think overall it's an A tier movie for me. All right, the most controversial movie probably I'd say is Last Jedi. I'm gonna put The Last Jedi in C tier because visually and a lot of the way this is edited and put together, I think is so good. Like, not the plot, just the aesthetics of the movie is insane. It is crazy good. You know, the colors and the editing, and it's very interesting. You know, this movie is hated by, you know, a lot of the fandom because of Luke's character and other reasons. I agree that the plot of this movie and all of that, they did Luke Skywalker pretty dirty in this. You know, I've watched many videos and people's opinions on why they think the way Luke was in this movie is acceptable and why he would have actually, you know, had that moment of hate where he was gonna strike Ben Solo, you know, because it's supposed to like be reflective of episode 6 when Luke was, you know, looking at his hand after he beat Darth Vader in the throne room. And, you know, he saw these visions of his friends dying, and, you know, not everyone's perfect, so he had that one instance of thinking he could save it and igniting his lightsaber. Obviously he knew he was wrong, but I get what people are saying. But man, this took too much of a wild turn for me for Luke Skywalker. A way too wild of a turn. Yeah, so then again, the throne room scene with Snoke in that's great. You know, Rian Johnson's like, oh, he says he wants to subvert our expectations, and he did on a lot of things. I just think he didn't respect what Star Wars means to a lot of people, and yeah, so honestly though, it's a fine movie to watch, but hurts to see sometimes some of the stuff that they did with the plot, and like the whole casino journey ended up being pointless. I didn't understand that. I mean, that took up way too long in the movie, and it felt like the whole movie was just a chase scene in space. I don't know. Yeah, and I think there's a little too much comedy, but I know it's Disney, but that's what I would say. All right, last movie, Rise of Skywalker. I remember I've never been so hyped for a movie coming out in the theaters before this came out. I mean, so excited. But unfortunately, this is the worst Star Wars movie for me. Strictly because they brought back Palpatine without bringing back Anakin, mentioning anything about Anakin. Boom, there goes you know, all of Anakin's actions, the prophecy, all of his stuff for nothing. Prophecy wasn't true of the Chosen One. Now, if you right now go look at my Episode 9 fanfiction, I completely scratched what Disney made, and I wrote my own Episode 9 from scratch. And I try my best to do the fandom justice. If you want to check it out, again, that's my dream is for that to get more recognized, and who knows what will happen one day. But George Lucas said Skywalker Saga is about Anakin Skywalker, and the fact that they brought back Palpatine, which, you know, it's pretty hype, you know, bringing back Palpatine. I remember going to the theater going, there's no way Anakin's not in this movie somehow. There's no way. It's not possible, because that would mess up all the other episodes, all the other Star Wars movies. Well, Disney being careless and just not thinking things through. I don't even know what happened, honestly. It is absolutely ridiculous what they did with how they handled this. I mean, it sadly just feels like it throws away the rest of these movies, throws away Anakin's purpose. So again, check out my fan fiction. I think I did better than Disney, if I were to say, because I think it's just they screwed up so bad. But that's why I have it in D, because I literally don't think they could have done a worse thing by bringing back Palpatine and not bringing back Anakin. Couldn't have done a worse thing. Besides that, I mean, the action was good. A lot of the visual and editing was good. It was a very fast-paced movie. But then again, there were some scenes like the fans were supposed to think Chewbacca just died. Rey just killed Chewbacca by accident. Okay. Then they go to the scene of, oh, Chewbacca's actually alive. We see that Chewbacca's actually captured. Then we go back to the main squad mourning Chewbacca, but we know that he's not. They messed the order up, essentially, of these scenes. And it's just... Oh man, they could have done so much better, and they left way too many people alive at the end of this movie for it being a concluding movie to the saga. I mean, this is it. I mean, and they left way too many things open. It's unfortunate. My Episode 9 is very different. I take some big risks, but I think it's a pretty dark story that I made, but I think I ended it how I had to do it properly for the fandom. So this is my tier list, guys. These aren't in order for in the respective tiers, but this is what tiers I would place the movies in. Episode 3 the best, and then Episode 9 the worst. So I'm sure I'm gonna hear it in the comments. A lot of disagreements, but I do understand why people put things in other places. So thanks for watching, and I'm just trying to grow this channel a little bit and see what happens with that. And like I said, reach my end goal of hopefully my Episode 9 fan fiction becoming big one day. And hopefully Star Wars Theory, which, guys, you gotta check him out. He's the best Star Wars YouTuber, hands down. Hopefully one day he can see my Episode 9. That's my dream also. So, alright guys, thanks for watching.